When it comes specifically to Kurt's screaming, I think Bleach is the best sample of how intense his screams could be. Does it take a certain technique to be able to scream like that, or how is he going about doing that?
It's not a technique thing. It's a natural thing. You either have it or you don't. It's your voice does it, your throat does it, or it doesn't. I mean, yeah, it's a technique, but I mean, he didn't have enough practice or live experience or anything else to have anything that you would call a technique. He was just natural. He had a good scream, and I was very impressed with it right from the get-go. I thought, this guy's got a great scream. He's got a good voice. I could tell that he had an interesting ear for melody, because what melodies there were interesting melodies and didn't always follow the guitar riff. So there was a little bit of thought in it. So you could just tell that he had a natural rock scream that was really good. And that was obvious right from the first chorus of If You Must, as you immediately, you'd go, whoa, okay, listen to his voice, going up a notch here. So, yeah, I liked his singing right off the bat. And I believe I probably said so at the time because I remember Dale Crover agreeing with me about that exact thing.
I guess from a technical standpoint, when you're recording someone who's screaming, do you have to set the mic up in a different way than when they're not screaming, just in order so it doesn't boom out? Like, how do you go about that technically?
Technically, if I'm dealing with somebody who screams a lot, I shy away from condenser microphones entirely, which puts me slightly on the outside of a lot of recording technique, I guess. I favor dynamic microphones for rock screamers. It just sounds more natural to me. It's less sibilant. You don't get as much sort of spitty, sizzly artifacts. What we call sibilance isn't as prevalent. It doesn't tend to be as shrill. Condenser microphones, which are generally higher fidelity, tend to be not very flattering to a lot of singers who are screamy. They can make them sound very shrill and unpleasant. Strangely enough, if you give somebody a Beta 58 or a Sennheiser 421 or just a Shure SM58 or something like that, maybe put a foam thing over it so they can eat the mic, as we say, which gives them more of a feeling just like they're on stage, because they're singing like this instead of into a mic that's far away. Mm-hmm. You get the proximity effect of the microphone working in your favor, but the pop filter that's over the mic is keeping the plosives from happening. Long story short, you can set up, and I've done this many times, I'll set up like 4 or 5 microphones just in a row and I'll say, okay, sing me a couple of lines of the loudest part of the song, and we'll just go through and we'll just A-B them, and we'll pick the mic. And generally with screamy singers, it's going to be a dynamic microphone. And all the expensive condensers are going to be left behind. Now, that's just my experience. Your mileage may vary. Mm-hmm. But in Kurt's case, in 1988, most likely I just had him singing into an SM58 with a pop filter. And I might have even let him hold it in his hand. Don't think so, though, because he would not have been a hand holder. He was used to playing with a guitar, so he would never have sung into the mic with it holding in his hand. I have other people do that. Mark Lanigan sang into an SM58, holding it in his hand for the Winding Sheet record. Sometimes the simple, obvious microphone is actually the best microphone to use, even though you may want to use the $5,000 microphone. It's not always the best choice. It really depends on the voice and the technique that's involved.
One of the things that, just like in like online Nirvana communities, that there's a lot of debate about is how seriously did Kurt take lyrics? Because Kurt sometimes will say publicly he didn't really prepare lyrics, he didn't really care, but then some people say no, he was very diligent with writing lyrics. In your experience, did he care a lot about the lyrics for his songs?
I do know that during the Bleach sessions, there were a few songs that he literally had to stop and finish the lyrics for, like right then and there. Or maybe he had like some lines floating around in his head, but until it was time to actually do the real vocals, he hadn't crystallized it to be like, this is what the lines are going to be. And he would have to sit down for a minute and think, okay, what's the verse really going to be? I've been singing this nonsense, but now I've got these lines in my head. Let's figure it out. So he did actually finalize some of the lyrics right in front of me when we were doing the Bleach session. And I think he did that a little bit on the Dale demo as well, but I think it was more a case of just remembering what the lyrics were that he already knew. I do know that when we were doing Rape Me for the In Utero demos, he did have to sit down, and he was actually trying some lines out while I was in the studio there, and he was running them by Courtney. He was going, "What do you think? Should I use this line or that line?" And she'd be like, "Yeah, that line. No, use this line." And she'd be like, "Yeah, you're right. That's a better line." So he was like, he was open to opinions, but he had the lines. He always had to sit down and go, "Am I going to sing it this way or am I going to sing it this way?" Because there'd always be a few optional phrasings in his head,
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's fairly obvious from reading the lyrics that he spent more time on the lyrics to In Utero than he did on some of the other lyrics, because I think the lyrics just show that there's more thought in them at that point. Maybe because he was more self-conscious, which I think is very likely, because he was very self-conscious after Nevermind was a success.
Mm-hmm.
I know nothing about how he wrote the lyrics for Nevermind because I wasn't really present for that. But it did seem a little more casual during the Bleach and the Dale demo sessions. Like I think he had the lyrics written out, but, I don't think he was particularly self-conscious about it, and maybe not even that ambitious about it. I am impressed that he was able to write a song like School that has 3 lines in it. And is a brilliant song with, only 3 lines in that song.
Yeah.
That is some economical songwriting right there that is a lesson for people, that you can tell a whole story with very few words.